There we go. I was thinking like, do I leave it on just like that nice soft ringing out of that beat chord, or do I just kind of like do what I do a lot of the time and just do a nice hard chuck at the end? And so I chucked in a chuck at the end, brother. What's up? Today's the 20th of July, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Let's get into this, bro. I feel like I gotta do some warm-ups, like I'm stepping in a ring. No joke. Not for the sake of what I'm about to say, but for the sake of my collarbone, bro. And the scar tissue that I'm ridding from it still as time continues just, ticking on the clock, because it does. Anyway, this is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. Yeah, it's the 20th of July, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is episode 148 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. The title of this... Just kidding. The title of this is... I was saying just kidding to something else, for those of you not watching in video plus audio, but in audio only. Let Them Struggle. That is the title of this. And yeah, that's what we'll talk about. So here's the thing. In the Image Clothing Company, there's 4 sides to us. One of the other 4ths is In the Image Clothing Company music. And I'll say it right now because Little Red, the guitar here, he looks different. And he looks different because he has no pick guard anymore. I took it off. I'm very minimal. I like things to be minimal. And he also sounds better. But the reason I took it off wasn't just to be minimal necessarily. It adds a little bit of height for my pinky finger, because sometimes I rest my pinky finger on the guitar. Actually, not only sometimes, I usually do when I am picking. Anyway, sometimes I want to throw the guitar at the wall, but oh shoot, yeah, and if you know, that's the case. I've broken many guitars out of frustration. Okay, hey, condemn me. I'm a human being. So, Let Them Struggle. That's the episode title. I think it's kind of funny because I'm like struggling in ways, right? And that's kind of exactly what this is about. Seriously, is that we're all human beings. But In the Image Clothing Company, music. It's another one of our 4ths. I can't even breathe, bro. I don't even know what the heck is going on. Just start throwing words out the window, bro. Talk about time flying. Watch my words fly. Yeah, that's one thing we do, is fly words around a little bit. In the Image Clothing Company music has a series titled Metronome Madness, where I go off the top with just lyrical flow, bro. Seriously. And no metronome, so it's really fun. I've done 9 of those so far. Started it just about a month ago, give or take. Probably less than a month ago. But really, I show the sizing and setup of guitars to not alter the hands. Our hands are doing really fine little motor skills when we play guitar, and they just can't be altered from their only neutral position, okay? Straight out from that pinky on the outside of the forearm, and then our fingers can just track in line, and there's both directions to the wrist's function, right? In all ways that it has a function from that point, because that's the neutral. But yeah, lots of music gets made by me, and seriously, lots. I joke about how I could make an album in a day, every day for the rest of my life, and I probably really could. But I don't normally do that. I'm just saying, I've got a lifetime of songs to write. And there you go, okay? But In the Image Clothing Company's main side, another one of our 4ths, is where it all started. That's why it's called the main side. But we address the human body's natural function. So that's why I said what I did about setup and sizing of guitars, because we talked about the anatomy of the human body in depth, and we come at it through clothing. The only thing placed on us, there's a center line, the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose. Our jaw is also in the center, but it stabilizes the entire body, okay? So on Earth's gravity, our feet oppose the center. There's 2 of those. They grip arches inward, and they keep us vertical. And yeah, clothing has to stay centered, okay? Fit correct, we'll all discuss here in a minute. And be made from 100% natural materials, just because the human body is. Unnatural materials in themselves can damage the body as much as physical size or weight imbalances in clothing. So things like stretch, right, can only pretty much only at least happen through unnatural materials. And these unnatural materials didn't even exist until just decades back from today's date. So, right, in the Image Clothing Company, we're set in a time in history where we can do what we can do. For that reason being one of those reasons. And there's multiple of those reasons. Holy cow. I'm literally choking up. I mean, this is real. I'm not gonna like, I'm gonna like choke up, dude. Like I don't know what's going on. Shoot. Okay, yesterday I made a video under the main site of the Image Clothing Company titled Rotations of the Lower Leg. And I talked about the importance of them and just how they work. The lower legs are basically the forearms. There's two bones in each of those two things, and they just work the same way. The forearms on the lower leg. So I discussed it, I showed visuals of it and how that is the case, right? Internal and external rotation both happen on each of the two lower legs, opposing the center line of our bodies. Wow, yeah, anyway, just some context, because we talk about eating, sleeping, standing, walking, sitting, breathing, hydration, all the things we do naturally as a human being, and how to do them naturally in an unnatural man-made world. And so yeah, we have clothing in the Image Clothing Company clothing to just let your body work, but we show free modifications in clothing, and we also just show natural functions in life as well, okay? And so we do the same thing really for dogs. In the Image Clothing Company Poodles is another one of our fourths. We specialize in purebred standard poodles, the big dogs, okay, the biggest size of poodle. Unless you're calling giant poodles a size, and it's not, you know, not technically. Some poodles are so big though. People call them giant poodles sometimes because they really can get really big, man. Yeah, I mean, 15 inches or taller at the withers is a standard size, and so, you know, sometimes they can get much taller than 15 inches at the withers, which is the top of the shoulder for the dog. The top of the shoulder, brother. So, yeah, we do a lot of things for dogs. Breed, purebred, standard poodles. Register them under the American Kennel Club, which we do that, you know, properly to show that we need to, okay? Giving your dog a birth certificate is important. It's not just something you can choose to do, but it is how we further good bloodlines of dogs. It's how we keep more dogs out of shelters. It's how we have planned litters instead of accidental ones, right? And how we keep our dogs at the same homes for their whole lives. Yeah, a lot of important things come from that. Good ownership of dogs is what we advocate for as well. Poodle parade events where we actually get together here in the state of Utah, the United States of America. Bring your poodles of any size, your poodle mixes of any size. A lot of nature type stuff. Different like subcategories like Clean the Creek poodle events. Not only poodle events, but they're titled poodle parades for the sake of the alliterations. We'll actually clean up trash as well as do things with the dogs and waterways. I'll give information on letting dogs stay natural, right? Our goal for that fourth of the company. So we do a lot of things with poodles. Stick around for it. It'll be just cool. Really cool thing. You know, it's yeah. There's episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast just about the poodles, and this is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, really. But the role that these dogs will play in the Image Clothing Company for the life of me, I will be in charge of this company. And then going forth, if anybody else runs it, as I've said. And the role that the poodles will play in not only in the Image Clothing Company, but just the life of people who come in contact with what we do through poodles. I'm taking like a little minute out here to kind of, you know, really make this clear again. Even, you know, as of today's date, we still don't have any poodles of our own under In the Image Clothing Company or me as the founder, Evan Strong. And I think a big reason why that's so intentionally the way that it is by God, where I'm talking about this as much as it is before we ever have a single standard poodle, I'm literally getting emotional, is because, like I'm saying, we do so much through poodles, and I'm speaking kind of like for myself down the road, because as of right now, I'm not doing anything with poodles physically at all yet. But It'll be really, really big. We do a lot eternal under In The Image Clothing Company. I mean, even just having this name, In The Image Clothing Company, the first 3 words in our 5-word name as a whole, we couldn't have that if we weren't doing things that were real, that lasted, that impacted people and made a difference. And so everything we do here, at least intertwined with it, and the majority of it, we're doing all that we can to have it be very intentional, purposeful, and ideally eternal. Okay, so what we're going to do with poodles, and I've said it and I've said it and I'll say it as many times as I get prompted to say it, and then even while we're doing it, I'll point it out, right? But up until we are, I'm still saying it to just make it clear. This is stuff that will impact people's lives who don't even really care about dogs very much. This is stuff that will change people's lives who have had bad interactions with dogs in their past. Anybody who is an owner of dogs and struggles with certain things with your dog, there's so many insights we will give, okay? Our Poodle Parade events are not just for the dogs, but they're not just for the human beings, and they're not just for the environment. They're not just for spreading awareness of what we do under In The Image Clothing Company, but they're for all those things plus many more, okay? So I just want to make it very clear, again, before it ever happens, partially the reason why I'm saying it so much, so you know that I know what will happen to the degree that I do before it does, but also so I'm making it very, very clear. If you're going to be sticking around under In The Image Clothing Company, expect big things coming from standard size poodles. Expect it. I talk often about not having expectations out of people because we're always just letting each other down. We're imperfect. But I am telling you to expect things from us through standard size poodles under In The Image Clothing Company poodles, okay? Big things, not just cute stuff, not just fun things, not just a couple facts that might enlighten you. I'm telling you very, very clear, expect. Yeah, kind of like stuff you couldn't expect to even happen through dogs, like I'm saying, some people don't even really care about dogs that much. You don't need to care about what we're doing, but no matter if you do or not, it's going to be big. And I'm not making claims, I'm just saying it, okay? You heard me choking up at the beginning. You can hear me in past episodes of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, or just videos on maybe not any side, but definitely the main side of In The Image Clothing Company before today's date. When I say the 4 sides of our company in the intros, and I say I could spend, a good 5 minutes at least, easily, right? But much more than that even, in the intros, talking about what all we will be doing under In The Image Clothing Company poodles. But, I don't really want to be saying more than I need to make the intros longer than you have to sit through if you don't really want to hear about it. But you'd like to hear what the video's about that comes after the intro, right? But I'm just going to say it as much as I say it when I'm prompted to. And there's a reason I'm putting emphasis on it. Like I've said so many times, I don't have some hopes to have dogs. I don't have some big dream. I have a plan to fulfill from God. And you don't gotta care, but it'll happen whether you care or not, and it will be big and impactful, okay? So, through the poodles, that's what I'm saying, specifically right here, okay? All right, so clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location, and this is where it is. If you are a man or a woman, if you're tall or short, skinny or fat, any age or any part of the earth or from any time period to ever be, meaning just if you're a human being, it's the same. Pants have to be entirely above your hips, so there's no restriction to the functionality of your hips. Slightly higher in the front than the rear for the waistband angle, because that's just the only position our hips, or the pelvis structure, as it's like terminology-wise worded, will sit neutral. Okay, that's just how it is. And then the tops of our body wear clothing we call tops. The seams on top of our shoulders, They have to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders. Our shoulders only ever work behind our head. The seams at the edges of our shoulders need to be right at the edges of our shoulders. That's where the joint is. And that seam is a joint of material. So they need to be in the same location. Okay, those two seams, if you will, those two joints, if you will. Okay, the dreaded collar seam modification under In The Image Clothing Company. In The Image Clothing Company is a rotated seams modification. We give a lot of free information, a lot of free modifications you can do in clothing. Like I said, you don't have to purchase In The Image Clothing Company clothing to allow your body to work. But you don't have to purchase In The Image Clothing Company dog products to allow your dogs to stay unaltered, because that's something we will have as well on InTheImageClothingCompany.com. Okay, but we just give information on how collars, leashes, harnesses are imbalanced and altering your dog, how dehydrated kibble is so unnatural to have water extracted from food that any animal eats by mankind, because it just wouldn't happen otherwise, right? How to keep your dog hydrated, how to keep your dog's joints healthy by not having it be on slippery, unnatural flooring indoors all the time when it would naturally be outside with textured earth underneath its feet. Human beings would as well, by the way, but anyway, this is what we talk about. This is what we do, okay, in The Image Clothing Company. Now, there's two things we have as prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company to not restrict the body. We're just weaving ropes across our feet, calling them shoelaces as human beings, and there's only one way to do it and not alter the feet. And all the mechanics in there that travels up through the neutral ankle, the neutral lower leg, as I was saying, that video I made yesterday, rotations in the lower leg, under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, that comes from shoe stuff, tongue tabs, tags in shoes, shoe lacing, uneven shoe tying, heels on shoes, squishy shoe soles, artificial things placed under the arches of your feet inside, okay? These type of things, bro. So, yeah, tying your shoes evenly over toward the center line of the human being on both feet is a must. There's just two sides to the body. You'll have rotation issues up to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers if you are rotating your feet by knots, okay? Yeah. And then secondly, we remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag is placed in clothing, it's just causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. Okay, there's just a neutral in every position of the body. Yeah, every joint, okay, has a neutral. The human body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. There's only one way the human body could ever work. Truly, truly, truly. You can't train the human being because of the things I just said, right? That wouldn't make sense. If you could train a mechanical machine to do something different than it was designed to do, God designed the human body. We have no say. So, there you go. There's your intro, okay? 148. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, let them struggle. This is the big thing. God lets us struggle. I'll get into it in all the ways I get into it, but picture you're an adult, and maybe you are an adult. Picture you're a parent, though, to a child, and your child's learning how to tie their shoes. This is funny because a lot of us learn how to tie our shoes, and we learn how to do it wrong. I was tying my shoes the same direction, which is uneven, until I was 24 years old, okay? My body has had to be, going through this process of getting out of the chronic patterning and scar tissue that gets built up. What we show under In The Image Clothing Company. And again, as I say, as I've shown, as you see, you can see my own physical body and its transformation since even just founding In The Image Clothing Company, because I've been preaching what I practice, if you will, right on the back end. I've practiced it first and I talk about it. So there's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled Preaching What You Practice, or something worded very similar to that, okay? Now, here's the big thing is we have struggles in our lives, and we're supposed to. The thing with teaching your kid how to do something like put on their own coat or tie their shoes or, put something back together when it falls apart, is if you do it for them, right? If you look at it and you're like, man, I could do this so much faster, let's just get this done, and you do it for them, they won't learn. But if you let the kid sit there and struggle and struggle and struggle a little bit longer than maybe you're even so comfortable with, sitting there and watching them like, man, I could just do it for them. What is going on? Why aren't you doing this right? Well, we need to let our children struggle. And I don't have any kids yet, okay? I don't. But we need to let our kids struggle. And this is the thing is we are all sons and daughters of God, okay? I say it like this because this is the case. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. Okay, gospel, meaning good news in English. Jesus Christ is our God. We're all human beings placed on the same earth, and we have one God. We're all the same things. We're equals, whether you want to believe it or not, whether it's hard to see that or not, right? Yeah, so we are just children ourselves, but then we're allowed to have children ourselves. That's nuts. But yeah, right? Everybody's just a lost little kid, no matter what age you are in life. Some little, like, 8-year-old kids are more wise than some, like, 60-year-old people. You know, we're just kids, dude. We're just at different stages of our childhood through this whole life, and then we die. The Cemetery. That was the episode that was right before this one, 147 of the Image Clothing Company podcast. Check that out if you'd like. But, yeah, so we're placed on this earth, and a lot of us have these questions on why do bad things happen to good people, Why, if I'm doing so much good on the earth and in my society to the people around me, do I still struggle and big things happen to me that don't seem to happen to others that I have to try to deal with and overcome, right? Well, God wants us to struggle. He lets us struggle. It's like letting your child struggle to tie their shoes, even though you could do it for them, right? If I just said, let your child struggle to tie your shoes, that's not what I meant. But you let them struggle to tie their own shoes. You let them struggle to learn how to put their own clothes on. You let your children struggle to, like, learn what 2 plus 2 is, and it's 4. But if you just tell them that, when they're sitting there and, like, thinking about it, let's see, then they won't learn, really. That's where we learn, is in the mistakes and in the hardships, in the moments where we're struggling. We're struggling to remember things. That's actually what helps our memory stay strong. That's a big thing. We don't remember things sometimes, but if somebody's there and they know the answer or they know, like, the word we're searching for, if they say it when we're trying to think about it, then we don't get that, like, problem-solving process, if you will, of, like, thinking, man, what was that? And you get your gears turning, as people say. Like, you get your mind really working, your brain working. It keeps you thinking. It keeps you on your toes, if you will, right? And so that's the thing, is we need to struggle. We actually really need to. It's beneficial for us. And us as not only parents of children, because some of us may never have our own children, and not only that, but even if you do, just being a teacher, being somebody who's delivering information or giving information to people, if we can let them struggle, they'll learn better. And so this is a big thing, when it comes to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I know it says in Scripture, that often people, like, they were convinced of their evil ways, or people got convinced of the truth. I say often, don't believe me, right? I'm not here to convince you of things, but truth is truth. And so this is the thing, is we all struggle in this life to just find our way, back home, to find our way to truth, to find our way back to the presence of God. And we all have our own journeys here, and our own plan here that God gave us, and our own individuality on how that's going to happen. And if we aren't allowing ourselves to struggle through it, because maybe we look at other people and they don't seem to be struggling, well, they are. Okay, don't believe me, but they are. Some people just don't show it. They want to make it look on the exterior as if they know what they're doing, and they got no idea, at least a lot of the time, okay? But yeah, we need to struggle. It's in the hardships, like I was saying, it's in the struggle and the wrestling, if you will, that we learn. There's scriptures where prophets wrestled with God. That's how it's worded. It doesn't mean that they were, like, actually physically wrestling. But it's like wrestling with your own thoughts. Like, man, did I do that? I'm pretty sure I did it. But I don't know. Did I actually do it? Like, maybe you left somewhere and you don't remember if you, like, put something somewhere, finished doing something, and you're kind of wrestling with your own thoughts. It's like, man, did I? shoot, man, I'm pretty sure I did. No, but now that and you're like so back and forth in your mind. This is what it means to wrestle with something in that way. It's a struggle, wrestling with God. What that means is, God, I know that you've told me that you need me to do this, and I felt it deep rooted in my soul, and I know it as well. Not only because you said it, but I also feel it. I know. But man, I just don't know. I mean, is that really? I mean, can I do that? Is it really me that's supposed to do that thing? Am I actually capable? And the answer is no. But we can do all things through Christ, who strengthens us. You don't hear me stutter very often at all. I just don't stutter often at all. Not that it's a bad thing to stutter, but I just don't do it. And I talk about it when I do. I address it for the sake of, when something hits me hard, and as we say, convicts me, I stutter through it. And it's hard for me to say, just because how real it is. And you can hear it in my voice, no joke. It hits me. And I didn't know that this episode would do this to me. I didn't know that this was really, like, I guess this personal of a thing for me to be saying right now. I literally stutter, no joke. And the reason I laugh about it like that is because I was struggling through the beginning of this, even just like getting through the intro. And yeah, I didn't really realize that this was going to be like this type of like personal, this much of a personal type of episode. But it is. And not that I don't think that I struggle like everybody else, because I know that I do, but just delivering this right now, I didn't think that I would have this like approach to it when I did, as far as the way I'm feeling about it. So yeah, we're supposed to struggle, and a big thing is, I've said often before, I've mentioned on In the Image Clothing Company podcast, this kind of silly but really true little statement. I've always felt like an outcast in my own town, in my own family, in my own friend groups, in my own life. I've always felt like an outcast, and that's just how we are as disciples of Jesus Christ. But yeah, struggling, it's a good thing. We're supposed to struggle. That's where we grow. And so that's kind of what I mean about relating our experiences with our own children and then God's experiences with us as his children. We're supposed to struggle, and he wants us to struggle. It's actually out of love that he lets us struggle. And it's out of love that we let our children struggle. You notice some parents that just, don't let their kids make mistakes, don't let their kids struggle, answer everything for their children, speak for their children, do things for their children. Those are very, very controlling parents. And the kids don't really often become that well-equipped for life or capable or independent because they've been so controlled by their parents. And yeah, those children that have parents that let them struggle and parents that really, have a pretty good deal of patience. That's something I struggle with in most all aspects of life, actually, is being patient. But except this is one of those ways where I don't struggle with it all that much, because I do love teaching and I do love seeing people learn truth and grow through hardships. And so that's a moment when I do have patience, is if people are willing to struggle when I'm teaching them. And this is why it's cool, right? Because we are the father of our children, or the mother of our children, okay? And God is the father of us, or essentially the mother of us as well, right? Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. There is a Heavenly Mother, by the way. I mean, God is our perfect example to go before us, and we are supposed to get married, a man and a woman, have children, grow families. I mean, that's how you become like God, really, is by having a family, because God has his family. I mean, that's us, his children. And we'll get into that where and when we do. Okay. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, meaning just the restored church of God himself, Jesus the Christ on the earth nowadays in 2025 and going forth, which I'm a member of. We talk about the family a lot and just how it's important, and that the dynamic of a man and a woman, lawfully and eternally wedded, and having children. Yeah, that's like the central thing of life, really. Um, when you're raising kids, you need to let them struggle. And God lets us struggle with what we're going through. Because that's the thing, is a lot of people have questions, like I was kind of saying a few minutes ago, well, if there's a God and he really is perfect love and he really is such a good God and he really knows everything, then doesn't he know that I'm having a hard time, and won't he fix it for me then if he loves me? And the answer is, well, because he loves you, he's not going to do it for you. And that's what I'm saying about, those really controlling parents that we can see in life all over the earth. I mean, there's the same family dynamics on any continent, in any time period, any culture, ever. You'll run into them here and there, okay? It's just what it is. The human life on earth, right? I've said it before. It's like every 100 years, let's say there's nobody who lives over 100 years. Some people do live a little bit over 100 years in modern day, but usually people don't. So let's say if nobody did, every 100 years we just get a whole new phase, a whole new cycle of human beings on the earth. There's not a single human being, let's say again, if nobody lived over 100 years old on the earth today that was here 100 years ago. And then as the 100 years goes by, the same thing will happen, right? It's just a rock in space, dude, that we're just sent to for a little bit of time. Again, the truth of all things. That's just what it is. So, anyway, the same dynamics that you find in your hometown, you'll find across the earth. You just will, and always. And it always has been that way. Now, the big thing is, our God lets us struggle, and often he'll put us in dynamics that we don't want to be in, of people to be around, occupations to have, societies to live in, time periods with governments or principalities and powers and rulership, right? All these things that we know as human beings across the earth. And he'll do this for us to learn, right? Stuff that's so hard for us to deal with, because that's when we grow. You have like a team building exercise, or you have like one of those, there used to be this thing called like cope, I think is what they did. I think it's what they titled it, is what I mean. Back when I was doing like stuff as a youth, like the Boy Scouts and just, young, quote unquote, young men activities, just like peers of mine when I was younger, like through the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or just, that's what it was. I remember we did this thing called cope. Like I'm saying, I think that's what they titled it. But anyway, that's what it was, like team building exercises, stuff that you do as a group that you can't like finish, like a project or like a challenge, unless everybody finishes together, right? It's something that has to be a team effort or you don't do it. Like that's like the parameters or the rules around it. And what that does is make it so you have to work together. And it's now a group of people you haven't decided to be with that you have to try to figure out how to work with, and it's like hard sometimes, big time. So that's probably why they titled it cope, right? Learning how to cope with hard things, with struggles that we didn't get to decide. Well, you don't really get to decide anything in this life. Newsflash, bro. Like what's on the news, you don't get to decide it, and it's not even true most all the time. Oh, shoot. Anyway, that's the case. So that's the big thing, is um, we grow through those experiences. We call them stuff like what I said, team building exercises. But they're not easy. In fact, they're usually very hard. And that's where the growth happens, is in the hard stuff, man. You look back in your life, on experiences that you just didn't want to have happen at the time. And maybe for like years, you were like, man, I still can't believe I had to go through that. That was ridiculous. But then, most all the time, we get to moments in our life where we can look back at those things and be like, holy cow, did I learn a lot and grow a lot from going through that. And no, it was not fun. And yes, it was very hard. But, we become stronger people through it. And we learn lessons that we can teach others because of it. And we become more understanding, more compassionate. And so this is the whole thing, is like the answer to the question really that we were like kind of asking there a minute ago. Well, if God's perfect and he loves us perfect, why would he ever let us go through hard struggles? Well, because that's where we grow and he wants us to grow. Andy Grammer has a song titled Wish You Pain. I'm pretty sure that's word for word the title, but if not, you'll be able to find it by searching that if you do. Andy Grammer, he's a musician and a singer and songwriter. He's awesome. He's got some beautiful messages in his songs. I've listened to him since I was a teenager, man. And he had a song called Keep Your Head Up. And that came out back then, like 10 years ago plus. It was more than 10 years ago for sure. Because I was, at least younger than 16. I'm 26 now. So, 26 years old, brother. And in that song, Wish You Pain, he says, he's like, it might sound strange, but I wish you pain. And that's what he's saying, is the same thing I'm saying here, the same thing God says to us, and that's where Andy is coming from in those lyrics is, just realizing that, we all struggle in this life, and that's how God set it up. He set it up to be a place of hardships. He set it up to be a place that we have to overcome. That's what it says, God overcame the world. Jesus Christ himself. Jesus Christ overcame death by resurrecting 3 days after he was crucified. And he swallowed up the sting of death through the great and final sacrifice when he died, through the atonement that he suffered for us. And, he overcame the world. The world's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be evil. It's supposed to be scary and challenging and rough. We're supposed to say things that we don't want to say because we were nervous and we just, spoke instead of like trying to calm down and think through what we would say before we accidentally, like put our foot in our mouth, and things like that, we embarrass ourselves and wish we never did, and we make the wrong choice, and it was one that you can't undo, and we struggle, man. We run out of things and have to scramble and try to figure stuff out. And really what we have to figure out is that we need to just rely on God and he'll provide, even when it seems like there's no way he could. He's the way maker, and he's perfect at it. He'll make a way out of nothing. He'll make a path on dry ground out of a Red Sea. And he'll part it using a staff in the hand of a man named Moses. See what I'm saying? If you don't see what I'm saying, read the Holy Bible for that story. But we're supposed to struggle, man, and that's what actually makes us strong. And so this is the thing. It's something that you can kind of brag about, right? Those of us who are just so wise. Yeah, I was just given a harder pass than you. It's no big deal, right? Like, it's kind of how it is. I mean, there's no comparison, and we all go through what we need to go through, and God is the decider of that. And there's no way we could compare who's going through a harder thing, because who has a higher pain tolerance? So who's actually like, experiencing more pain in a way we could measure, or who just can tolerate it easier, right? Who actually had a harder past, or who just perceives that things were worse than the other person, right? There's no way we can ever compare anything in life from a human being to human being. But what we can be certain about is that everybody struggles, always has, and always will. And it's always the same. I've said this past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's like what I was just saying about the whole 100 years thing, where we've got just like a whole cycle of new human beings. It's like a conveyor belt, dude. You're like pumping out soldiers to go to Earth and just fight the craziness so you can make it alive. That's really what it is. See who can endure to the end, because that's what we're commanded to do, and who actually makes it back to the presence of God versus who goes to hell. I wanted to sit on that for a second because that's as real as it is. That's what it is. Truly. That's crazy to say because it sounds scary to some, right? But that's the thing, is we struggle with a lot of fears in this life, and we're supposed to. If life was scary, life is scary sometimes. If life wasn't scary, well, that's the whole thing, bro. Then there'd never be any kind of peace if there wasn't scariness, fear. Okay, there'd never be happiness if there wasn't sadness. There'd never be light if there wasn't dark. There's opposition in all things. And the whole thing is, Jesus Christ came into the world. God himself, the perfect one, came into an imperfect world to show us how to overcome the struggle, because he did it perfect. And that's the whole point, You can't overcome the world, which is what we're commanded to do, if it's not something you got to struggle through. If life was supposed to be good and blissful and easy, then there'd be no way to overcome it. But really, the only way we overcome it is enduring to the end. Like I was saying, even if you have the answer, when somebody's struggling to find the word that they can't think of, or even if you can do something faster for somebody than letting them struggle through it until they get it done, you're not allowing them to endure, or endure, if you are pronouncing it that way, to the end, okay? That's what I mean. Controlling parents, bro. They'll do everything for you. They don't let you endure through the struggle to be able to learn. And so they'll do it for you. You don't learn anything. You're just kind of there like, wait, what happened? And they're like, well, I did it because you were taking too long. Well, great, but then why'd you have me even start it in the first place? You could have done it, And then they'll say like, well, because I didn't want to do it, but then you weren't even smart enough to do it, so right. So I had to take over for you. I stepped out of that because I don't want to make it sound like it's this whole like me versus him, my dad, okay, or human versus human, because we all do this in the ways that we do. I mean, as much as I said, I really like to watch people grow and learn, and that's where I am patient in the times that I'm patient. I also said I'm very, very impatient because I'm very quick with things. And then I get all prideful about it, Like, man, I could have had this done like 4 times over. Why are you doing this, Like, see what I mean? So I just don't want to make it a him versus her versus him, or her versus her. Yeah, I don't want to make it a thing, pitting one. Oh, shoot. Oh, I wish I knew the chords. I did a freestyle one time, and I've referenced this, since I've done it, but pitting one idea against another. Darn it, I said something so cool. Something about your brother's not your brother when your brother's wrong. Yeah, I mean, we just, we just get after people. And again, I do it, man, especially because I am just smart and I'm quick, okay, witted. And then I stutter. Yeah, that's real. That's funny though, because yeah, I am. I'm just quick and smart. And so sometimes I really do have a hard time with people who are just kind of slower thinkers. It's not that I'm better than them because I'm smart and maybe they're not as smart in ways, but we just have strengths and weaknesses in the ways that we do. And so, right, let them struggle. What I need to do is kind of humble myself and allow myself to struggle through sitting there when somebody's not figuring something out, when I know what it is, or how to solve the thing, or like say the word they're thinking of. And what that person needs to do is be able to have the time to struggle to to be able to come up with the answer, or to learn how to do the thing. It's on both ends. It's a struggle for somebody who could do it quicker to be able to be patient, and it's a struggle for somebody to do it slow to, well, actually essentially be patient with themselves, rather than being like, does anybody know how to do this? Because that's the other thing, is it's on the other end. It's not only about, like, we could be in the wrong if we're the ones that are the ones in the know, if you will, and trying to just take over and do it for them because we know. But then the person who doesn't know can be in the wrong as well. And that could be on either end, right? I mean, just because I know how to do something doesn't mean that I know how to do everything. But just because I don't know how to do something doesn't mean that I don't know how to do anything. Okay. It reminds me of Finding Nemo, where Dory says to Marlin, which is the dad of Nemo, she's like, well, you can't never let anything happen to him, because then nothing would ever happen to him. That line goes along with this episode beautifully. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. Is why doesn't God take away our struggles? Well, because if He never let anything happen to us, then nothing could ever happen to us. And it's in those things that happen to us where we grow and we experience the dynamic of the human being, as I say. But yeah, you do have to have patience on the end of struggling through something, because that's often what happens is, if I'm sitting here trying to learn how to do something and I just am struggling with it, and there's somebody right here who I know knows how to do it and just could do it for me, and I could just hand this off to them and say, no, you do it, I'm sick of trying. Well, that's my fault for giving up, for not enduring through the struggle. That's what I'm saying. It's on both ends, and that's the opposition too, right? There's opposition in people. There's some people who are pretty darn smart, and there's people who, hear this correct, because it's just the case, really aren't all that smart. But we have strengths and weaknesses in the ways that we do because of what I was just saying, the dynamic of the human being, okay? Now, we're supposed to struggle. Because that's the thing, is God is the smartest of all. It's not just that He knows everything, He created everything that there is to know. And He is everything. He's the great I am. So you want to talk about being smart, no matter who you are, if it's me or anybody else. Well, we're not compared to God. And so again, we need to humble ourselves to realize we're all struggling where we are, because I think sometimes it's easy for us to think, in moments where we're doing something that we know so well, that like we could never struggle with it. Something you're doing every day, for example, you feel like you know the ins and outs of it. You know all of it. You completely know how to do this thing perfect. Well, no, you don't. Just like I don't know how to do anything perfect. But I think sometimes we can get in our heads about it like that, and believe that we know how to do something perfect, or just know about all that there is to know about like one thing, and like we could never struggle with it again, is the point. Once we've reached a certain level of understanding about it. That's just not the case. We're supposed to struggle here in this life, right? And God will let us struggle. God will let us struggle thinking that we know everything, because that's a struggle in itself. That's a lot to know, bud. Everything? You just don't, man. I'm sorry that you're like believing things, but stop it, right? Yeah. Anyway, holy cow, this is cool. I like this episode. I like the way that it's like so chill. I feel so chill, at least, delivering it. I do. Yeah, I definitely do. Most certainly. That's funny. Anyway, Willow Red the guitar, man. What a good guitar in the ways that he is. Yeah, we are supposed to struggle. So that's the thing, is when we do struggle with stuff in life, we need to realize why we're struggling, okay? Because it's like what I was just saying. Maybe it is something we've done so many times, and then we get after ourselves like, man, why am I not able to think of how to do this? I've done this like thousands of times. It's, we're sitting there like, man, I can't remember right now how to do this and why. This is like something I don't even think about normally. Why is it so hard for me right now? Then you think there's like something wrong with you. It's like, what was wrong with me? Well, nothing, but you're supposed to struggle, and maybe you need to be struggling right now specifically for reasons that you wouldn't really struggle otherwise doing the same thing. But this moment is supposed to teach you something or deepen your understanding of it in a way because, of some reason that maybe you're not even aware of right now. So anyway, yeah, life's a struggle, bro, and we need to let ourselves struggle. Not only our children, not only those that we're teaching, if we are in any kind of like leadership or like teacher position in life, but we need to let ourselves struggle. Okay. And you don't have to be in a teacher or leadership position, by the way, to teach somebody something. A lot of times we're teaching people things that we don't even realize, like, we're teaching. It's not like we're sitting there, like, trying to, like, teach a lesson of something or about something, but we're actually really, really teaching things in a big, impactful way. And maybe we don't even realize what we said or did. And it just, like, expounds somebody's mind, right? Or deepens their understandings, So anyway, being patient with ourselves is a big thing, because that's who we get upset with the most, Our own worst enemy is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's title, and we're our own worst enemies, Everybody on the whole earth could just love us so much, and we could just like talk down on ourselves like crazy if we chose to. So let's not do that, right? But it just happens where it does. Again, we struggle. And that's what I mean is we need to be patient with ourselves. We need to let ourselves know that it's okay to struggle because we're just going to. And that's a big thing, like I was saying, it's not just about a child, teaching somebody to tie their shoes. But as people age, a lot of times people get, less capable. And that's strange, but it's just how it works. It's kind of like what I said in the last episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It was titled The Cemetery. I was like, well, death is basically the same thing as being born, right? It's just reversed. And that's the same thing with getting old and forgetting things. It's the same as learning things when you're young. It's just reversed. It's just life, bro. And when we do forget things, it happens at least often to people as they age. We need to be patient with ourselves in our own strugglings. I think that's how you say it, but it sounded funny. But yeah, through our own struggles, because maybe it's something we just about never struggled with through most of our life. And now we're old, and it's like we're struggling with things sometimes. And we kind of feel like we shouldn't, But that's where that word let comes in. We need to let ourselves struggle. I had this Nissan Xterra. I've talked about it a little bit on In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I got hit by a truck, dude, and it got totaled. But Back to Bite is the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast where I told that story of the accident, bro. Big old Ford Highboy, 1977, big 6,000 plus pound truck, dude, just slammed me without lights on. It was dark outside. I'll give a little context though. In that episode, Back to Bite, I was talking about how someone was trying to sue me to get money out of that accident. It was the passenger in that truck. It was just the driver and the passenger only in that truck, and then just me alone in my car. And, months later, and then, years later, it's been over 2 years at this point. Oh, shoot. as far as I'm aware. I don't want to say it's been longer than it's been, but anyway, I said the dates of when it happened in that episode. You can go check out. It's been at least a year and a half plus. I think it has been somewhere around 2 years, 2.5 years even since it happened. Holy heavens. Anyway, nothing went anywhere with that. I finally got a letter slash email from the people, the attorneys or whatever, and they said the case is dismissed. And I'm like, oh, thank you for telling me, but I knew that nothing would happen. It's just I said in that episode, like, no matter what comes from this, I'll address what legally has to be done. But I'm not worried about it. It's just silly. Things come back to bite you. I was kind of laughing at it more than anything, you know. Uh, anyway, there you go. There's just kind of like your full circle moment with that, because anybody who has the opportunity to view that episode, either in visual plus audio or just listen to that episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Back to Bite, yeah, it's totally closed and done. I never had to pay any more than I did clear back when it happened, right? Which, yeah, it's just silly. People try to drag things on longer than they need to, and that's what I mean. Things just come back to bite you that shouldn't have to even be dealt with. That's what I mean. But for the sake of relating it to this episode, right? Struggles. We just go through struggles. We just go through things. I mean, I got stronger in that. In a sense, my faith, not just in a sense. No. Most certainly, my faith got strengthened through it. Because like I said, I just knew the whole time it wasn't going to go anywhere. But I still just had this whole, like, lingering, like, apparently the case isn't, like, closed on their end of things. Whoever was, like, making it a case in the beginning, this whole, like, lawsuit where they were just trying to get money after the fact, uh anyway, so it did strengthen my faith, because yeah, even though I really, really clearly got told by God, like, this is not going to go anywhere, still it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, it's still an open case, quote unquote, like, technically, legally, apparently, it was just kind of lingering for years, so anyway, that's what I mean. Struggles actually really help us, and they grow our faith in God. So, yeah. Where I was, though, is the word let is a big one. On the back of my Xterra, that one that got totaled, that's why I started speaking on that right now at all, the accident, and the lawsuit that just never was going anywhere to begin with. See, and I still have this almost like, why did I have to deal with that? I knew nothing was going to come from it. Why couldn't they have just, approached it justly in the beginning? Well, because human beings aren't just. Human beings aren't trustworthy. Human beings aren't always honest. That's why, right? Human beings are greedy. Human beings are conditional, and we expect things, and we have to have things, even if it's just food, water, air, oxygen, or we die. We're just conditional, so we're just imperfect. And that's what I mean is that was a beautiful struggle, actually, that strengthened my faith and the faith of those people around me, because I told people around me not to worry about it. Those who knew about the lawsuit that the other person was trying to make something of, I was like, no, it's not going to go anywhere. Don't worry about it. And I didn't even care. I mean, it didn't even faze me, other than I just was like, well, then why is it even there? If I know so strongly, deep-rooted, this isn't going to go anywhere. But that's a big thing, is, it was able to be used, at least, regardless of how much it has and who it has, strengthened the faith of. That's what it's been able to do. Seeing how I didn't even care, it's like $9,000 plus, US, this passenger of this other vehicle was trying to get out of me after the fact, and I just didn't even care. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. And the people around me, they were like kind of shocked on how I could be so calm about it. So anyway, that's the thing, is a lot of times our struggles actually get used to strengthen other people's faith through our experiences that they're just able to witness and maybe even be a part of, or just kind of be around. But anyway, on the back of my Xterra, it said in big white letters, "Let your faith be bigger than your fear." I put that on there. I just had it custom made by somebody on the internet. And yeah. That word "let" is huge, right? Let them struggle. I mean, that's what we need to do is let either ourselves or others struggle, because God lets us struggle, and that's actually how we grow. So that's a good thing, to know, for those that maybe have been wondering and didn't know, like, well, if God really is there, he is, okay? But if people are wondering, and if they're like, and if he really is a good God, and he is, then why do I go through hardships? Well, for a lot of reasons, as to, what's been explained here in this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 148, titled "Let Them Struggle." You can't really grow otherwise. If everything was just going so smooth in your life, you wouldn't really grow from it. It's learning how to overcome things that are challenging. That's where we grow. So, anyway, there you go. Okay. Let them struggle. It's reminding me of the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled "The Greatest Battle." And as I've said, truly the greatest battle of my life has been playing guitar. And I've struggled with it for the reasons that I have, and we'll both see. At least I will, and then whoever, sees anything coming from me down the road when it comes to guitars and what all we do under In the Image Clothing Company music, all forth of In the Image Clothing Company, through guitars. So we struggle for things. Yeah. Yeah. We struggle, man. We're supposed to struggle. We're supposed to struggle. We're supposed to struggle. Then I write a song about it. I don't know. Oh, the struggle. Oh, the struggle. Finn. Anyway, there you go. Episode 148, titled "Let Them Struggle." My name is Evan Strong, the player of the guitar. So I'm going to be a professional guitarist. I've been saying it'll happen. Don't believe me. Thank you. Stick around for the poodles. Today is the 20th of July, 2025. I'm settled. Yeah, bro. There you go. Involve yourself, okay? An episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast title, but also, just do it. Involve yourself. Well, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and in the Image Clothing Company, and all that we do, share what we do. That's not something I have said all that often, really, but do it, where you want, where you can, where you do. Yeah, dude, it'll just help people. That's why we're here. So, thank you.